Russian President Vladimir Putin publicly scolded his economic team on Wednesday, revealing that GDP contracted by a combined 1.8% in January and February. I'm quoting, "I expect to hear detailed reports today on the current economic situation and why the trajectory of macroeconomic indicators is currently below expectation," he told his aides in a televised meeting. Another quote, "Moreover, below the expectations of not only experts and analysts, but also the forecasts of the government itself and the Central Bank of Russia." This marks the first economic contraction since 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. Here's the puzzle. The Iran war sent oil prices through the roof. Trump temporarily lifted sanctions on Russian crude. Moscow should be cashing in on the biggest energy windfall in years, and instead the economy is shrinking. The opportunity is burning, literally. I'm Elle, I have a PhD in computer science, and I use data analysis to spot patterns in geopolitics and economics. Strip away Putin's public frustration and look at the fiscal reality for a second. Russia's budget deficit widened to $58.6 billion in the first quarter. Oil tax revenue in March dropped by half compared to a year ago. Massive military spending helped GDP expand 4.1% in 2023 and 4.9% in 2024. But weak oil revenue and deeper deficits forced Moscow to limit defense outlays. GDP grew just 1% last year. The financial crisis warnings have been stacking up for months. Earlier this year, Russian officials told Putin a financial crisis could hit by summer amid spiraling inflation. Companies feeling the squeeze of high interest rates and weaker consumption meant more workers going unpaid, getting furloughed, or seeing hours cut. As consumers struggled to service loans, concerns mounted about a crash in the financial sector. "A banking crisis is possible," a Russian official told the Washington Post back in December on condition of anonymity. And another quote here, "A non-payments crisis is possible. I don't want to think about a continuation of the war or an escalation." The Center for Macroeconomic Analysis and Short-Term Forecasting, which is a state-backed think tank, warned back in December the country could face a banking crisis by October if loan troubles worsen and depositors pull funds. In June, Russian banks raised red flags on a potential debt crisis as high interest rates weigh on borrowers' ability to repay. And if we thread together why the Iran war windfall never materialized, the pattern becomes brutally clear. The Iran war sent oil prices soaring, and the Trump administration lifted sanctions on Russian oil, setting up Moscow for a revenue windfall. With 1/5 of the world's oil supplies cut off, Russian Urals crude, which had traded at a steep discount to Brent, nearly reached parity with the global benchmark. It's the perfect setup, right? Except Ukraine's relentless drone attacks on Russian export hubs have prevented Russia from fully capitalizing on the opportunity. Ukrainian drone strikes knocked out roughly 40% of Russia's oil export capacity, which is about 2 million barrels per day. Go look at which facilities Ukraine hit and just watch what jumps out. Loadings at Primorsk and Ust-Luga, Russia's two largest Baltic ports, were suspended after drone attacks triggered fires and infrastructure damage. The Black Sea port of Novorossiysk, with capacity of about 700,000 barrels per day, lagged behind loading schedules after drone attacks. Russia's pipeline exports to Hungary and Slovakia were effectively halted since January due to the damage to the Druzhba oil pipeline via Ukraine. For frameworks on analyzing what economic data reveals versus official messaging, my book Awake the Practice of Critical Thinking in an Age of Soft Lies walks through recognizing structural problems institutions try to obscure. It's available as ebook and audiobook. Subscribers get 10% off, and you can grab the first chapter for free in the description links below. The Tuapse oil refinery, one of Russia's 10 largest, capable of refining 12 million tons of crude annually, was hit twice in less than a week in mid-April. The port of Tuapse handles up to 10% of Russia's total petroleum product exports. Ukraine's general staff confirmed strikes on the Kyryshia refinery, Russia's second largest by processing capacity, refining up to 20 million tons annually. Damage was confirmed to primary oil refining units, oil bitumen production facilities, hydrotreating units, and gas fractionation systems. Check out our video on Europe dumping $10 trillion in U.S. assets, by the way. It's a different mechanism, but same theme of major economic restructuring under crisis. If we just zoom out to the structural level, Russia faces a squeeze from both ends. The Russian central bank governor said Thursday that Russia's unemployment rate remained at a historic low of 2% as the war created a lack of available workers. I'm quoting here, "The peculiarity of the current situation is that for the first time in modern history, our economy has faced shortages or limits on labor." That labor shortage stokes inflation, which keeps interest rates elevated. Although the central bank recently eased them slightly from the peak, high borrowing costs are strangling the economy right now. Meanwhile, Russia cannot export enough oil to fund the budget because Ukrainian drones keep hitting the infrastructure. President Volodymyr Zelensky said on April 19 that Kiev's long-range strikes on Russian oil infrastructure inflicted at least $2.3 billion in lost oil revenue for Russia in March alone. That is 1 month. Long-range Ukrainian drone attacks and shadow fleet tanker seizures reportedly disabled about 40% of Russia's oil export capacity during the exact period when global oil prices surged due to Hormuz closures. The irony gets sharper as well. Moscow is planning to reintroduce a ban on gasoline exports to combat domestic fuel shortages. Just think about that. Russia sits on massive oil reserves, global prices are sky high, sanctions are temporarily lifted, and the Kremlin has to ban gasoline exports because refineries are burning and domestic consumers face shortages. Russian newspaper Kommersant cited unscheduled refinery maintenance and fires at Primorsk and Ust-Luga. For comprehensive documentation of how countries are systematically restructuring away from dollar dependence, we've got a separate playlist on Europe's decoupling, packed with data showing parallel shifts like this. The banking crisis warnings are not abstract things. With companies squeezed by high rates and weaker consumption, workers face unpaid wages or furloughs. Those workers then struggle to service consumer loans, and the head of the Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs warned in June that many companies were in pre-default situation. When the industry lobby starts using pre-default, they're now speculating, they're just documenting. In terms of what's going to happen next, we should, I think, watch for whether Putin forces the central bank to cut rates aggressively to prevent the banking sector from imploding. That risks accelerating inflation even further, which erodes real incomes and consumer spending. The alternative, keeping rates high to control inflation, risks systemic financial crisis officials have been warning about since December. The International Monetary Fund upgraded Russia's growth forecast for 2026 by 0.3% off the back of higher energy prices, now projecting 1.1% growth. That forecast assumes Russia can actually capitalize on high oil prices. Ukrainian drone attacks hitting refineries twice a week suggest perhaps otherwise. Check out our separate video on Canada and China dumping $13 trillion in U.S. assets, by the way. The great divestment continues across multiple fronts. Ukraine hit 76 Russian industrial targets in March alone, including 15 oil refineries. The strikes are not slowing down, they're intensifying precisely when Russia needs export capacity the most. Every refinery fire is lost revenue Moscow desperately needs to fund the war machine and prevent fiscal collapse. Putin's televised scolding of economic aids reveals something deeper than bureaucratic frustration. When you've spent years mobilizing the economy for war, suppress consumption to fund defense spending, and finally get handed a massive energy price spike, only to watch Ukrainian drones burn the infrastructure required to profit from it, publicly demanding explanations becomes political necessity for him. The alternative is admitting the war strategy itself created the vulnerabilities Ukraine is now exploiting. The structural bind matters more than any single quota. Russia needs high oil revenue to fund deficits. It needs functioning refineries and export terminals to generate that revenue. It needs to keep interest rates high to combat inflation driven by labor shortages caused by mobilization. But high interest rates are crushing the corporate sector and threatening banking stability. Meanwhile, Ukraine keeps hitting the exact infrastructure Russia needs to escape the trap. Reuters called the disruptions the most severe oil supply disruption in modern Russian history. That assessment came back in March. April strikes on two apps were even worse. The Iran war created the perfect windfall opportunity, sanctions lifted, price soaring, global shortage creating buyer demand. Russia cannot really capitalize because the export infrastructure is literally on fire. Either Moscow diverts significant military resources to air defense around refineries and ports, pulling assets from Ukraine front lines, or accepts that 40% of export capacity stays offline during the biggest energy price spike in years. Both options weaken Russia's strategic position. The Iran war that should have rescued Russia's economy instead exposed how vulnerable its energy infrastructure has become after 4 years of sustained Ukrainian drone campaigns. For analysis of whether the Iran war itself might be orchestrated for insider trading opportunities in prediction markets, check the video on your screen right now as the natural next step for a deeper dive. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next one.